her 7-month pregnant belly making it impossible to swim. Above the murky water, she could hear voices shouting, but they seemed so far away. Her baby kicked hard against her ribs as if sensing the danger. This was supposed to be a peaceful Saturday at the lake. This was supposed to be the last family trip before their little girl arrived. Instead, Simone was drowning while watching her husband David pull another woman to safety. It had happened so fast. The wooden dock had cracked under the weight of all three of them. Rebecca, David's co-worker who had somehow ended up joining their family day, had screamed as she hit the water first. Simone followed a second later, her pregnant body hitting the cold lake with a splash that knocked the wind out of her. But David didn't hesitate. Not even for a second. Simone watched through the green-tinted water as David's strong arms wrapped around Rebecca's thin waist, pulling her toward the shore with powerful strokes. Rebecca's long blonde hair floated around them like seaweed as he carried her to safety. No one was coming for Simone. Her lungs burned. The baby inside her had gone still. Panic shot through her body as she tried to kick her way to the surface, but her heavy belly and the long sundress she wore tangled around her legs. She was going to die here. Her baby was going to die here. And David was on the shore, holding another woman. A pair of strong hands suddenly grabbed her arms. A stranger, an older black man with kind eyes, had jumped in after her. "I got you, sister," he puffed as he pulled her toward the shallow water. "I got you." Simone coughed up lake water as he dragged her onto the muddy shore. Her whole body shook from cold and shock. The man, who introduced himself as Reverend Thompson, wrapped his jacket around her shoulders and called 911 from his phone. "My baby," Simone whispered, clutching her stomach. "Something's wrong." 20 feet away, David was still focused on Rebecca, who was crying and coughing dramatically despite having been in the water for less than 30 seconds. She clung to David's shirt, her mascara running down her face in perfect black lines. David held her close, rubbing her back and whispering that she was safe. He hadn't even looked in Simone's direction. The ambulance arrived 15 minutes later. As the paramedics checked Simone's vital signs and strapped her to a stretcher, David finally jogged over. His clothes were still damp and he smelled like Rebecca's perfume. "Baby, are you okay?" he asked, reaching for her hand. Simone pulled her hand away. "Don't touch me." "Simone, what's wrong?" "You're safe now." She stared at him with eyes full of pain and disbelief. "You saved her first." "What are you talking about?" "I saved whoever I could." "We both fell in at the same time, David. I'm 7 months pregnant with your child. And you chose to save your girlfriend first." David's face went white. Rebecca, who was wrapped in a blanket nearby, looked away quickly. "It's not like that." "Yes, it is." Simone's voice was quiet but firm. "It's exactly like that." The paramedic interrupted them. "Ma'am, we need to get you to the hospital right away. Your blood pressure is dangerously high." As they lifted her stretcher into the ambulance, Simone took one last look at David. He was standing next to Rebecca, one hand on her shoulder, watching the ambulance with worry in his eyes. But Simone couldn't tell if he was worried about her or about getting caught. The ride to the hospital was a blur of flashing lights and radio chatter. The female paramedic, a young black woman with gentle hands, kept checking the baby's heartbeat with a portable monitor. "What's your name, honey?" she asked as they sped through traffic. "Simone." "I'm Angela." "Simone, I need you to try to stay calm for me. Your baby's heartbeat is a little irregular, but she's fighting. You just keep talking to her, okay?" Simone placed both hands on her belly. "I'm sorry, little one," she whispered. "Mommy's sorry this happened." At the hospital, everything moved fast. Doctors and nurses surrounded her, asking questions and running tests. David arrived an hour later, his hair still messy and his clothes wrinkled. Rebecca was not with him. Dr. Hayes, an older black woman with silver hair and warm brown eyes, pulled David aside after examining Simone. Simone could hear parts of their conversation through the thin curtain. "Under a lot of stress, blood pressure dangerously high, could trigger early labor." "Is the baby okay?" David asked. "We're monitoring both of them closely. But Mr. Carter, I have to ask, has your wife been under any unusual stress lately?" There was a long pause. "We've had some problems at home." Dr. Hayes' voice became firmer. "What kind of problems?" Another pause. "I made some mistakes. Poor choices." "I see. Well, your wife and baby need peace and calm right now. Whatever those problems are, they need to wait." But it was too late for peace and calm. At 2:47 a.m., Simone woke up to sharp pains in her stomach. The monitors around her started beeping frantically. Nurses rushed in, their faces tense with worry. Page Dr. Hayes immediately, one of them called out. David jumped up from the chair where he'd been sleeping. What's happening? Sir, I need you to step outside, a nurse said firmly. But that's my wife. Now, sir. Through the pain, Simone could see the worry in the medical team's faces. She knew what was happening before anyone said the words. I'm losing her, aren't I? She whispered to Dr. Hayes when she arrived. Dr. Hayes took her hand. We're going to do everything we can, sweetheart. But I need you to stay strong for me. For the next 6 hours, Simone fought to save her baby. She held on to every kick, every movement, every sign that her daughter was still alive. David waited outside in the hallway, pacing back and forth, occasionally trying to come in but being turned away by the nurses. But at 8:23 a.m., the fight was over. I'm so sorry, Simone, Dr. Hayes said, tears in her own eyes. We lost her. The silence that followed was the loudest sound Simone had ever heard. Her arms felt empty. Her heart felt broken. And when David finally came into the room, his eyes red from crying, she couldn't even look at him. Simone, I'm so sorry, he whispered, reaching for her. Get out. Baby, please. Get out, she screamed, her voice raw and broken. Get out and don't come back. David stood frozen for a moment, then slowly backed toward the door. I'll be back tomorrow, when you're feeling better. No, Simone said, turning her face to the wall. Don't come back tomorrow. Don't come back ever. As the door closed behind him, Simone finally let herself cry. She cried for her daughter who would never take a first breath. She cried for the marriage that was over. And she cried for the life she thought she had, which had died in that lake along with everything else. Dr. Hayes sat with her for a long time, not saying anything, just holding her hand while she grieved. Finally, when the tears had stopped coming, Simone spoke. I want to go home to my grandmother's house in North Carolina. Are you sure? You'll need follow-up care. I'm sure. I can't stay here. Not with him. Dr. Hayes squeezed her hand. I understand. Let me make some calls. That evening, as Simone packed the few belongings David had brought from home, she found something in her purse that made her stomach turn. It was a receipt from a jewelry store, dated 3 days ago. David had bought a necklace. But it wasn't for her, it was engraved with Rebecca's initials. She crumpled the receipt and threw it in the trash. Then she called her grandmother Ruby. Grandmama, it's me. Can I come home? Of course, baby girl. What's wrong? Everything, Simone whispered. Everything is wrong. The Greyhound bus rolled through the Virginia countryside as Simone watched the world blur past her window. She had been traveling for 8 hours, and her body still ached from everything that had happened at the hospital 3 days ago. The doctor had cleared her to travel, but had warned her to take it easy and to see someone as soon as she got to North Carolina. Simone pressed her hand against the glass and watched farms and small towns pass by. Each mile took her further from David, further from the life she thought she wanted, and closer to the only place that had ever felt like true home. Her phone had been buzzing constantly since she left. David had called 47 times and sent dozens of text messages. She had read the first few. Simone, please come home. We need to talk about this. I know you're hurting, but running away won't solve anything. Rebecca means nothing to me. You're my wife. After that, she stopped reading them and eventually turned the phone off completely. She wasn't ready to hear his excuses or his promises. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The woman sitting next to her, an elderly black lady with silver hair and kind eyes, had been quiet for most of the trip. But as they crossed into North Carolina, she finally spoke. You running to something or away from something, child? Simone looked at her, surprised by the directness of the question. Both, I think. The woman nodded. That's usually the way it goes. I'm Mrs. Patterson, by the way. Simone. You got family where you're headed? My grandmother. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 12. Mrs. Patterson's expression softened. Grandmothers have a special kind of love. They see past all the hurt to the person you're meant to be. Simone felt tears threatening again. I hope so. I'm not sure who I'm meant to be anymore. Honey, pain has a way of stripping us down to nothing so we can build ourselves back up stronger. You'll figure it out. When the bus finally pulled into the small station in Asheville, Simone could see grandmother Ruby waiting on the platform. At 72, Ruby Carter was still a force to be reckoned with. She stood barely 5 feet tall, but her presence filled any room she entered. Her gray hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she wore the same style of floral dress she'd been wearing for as long as Simone could remember. Ruby's eyes found Simone through the bus window, and her face immediately crumpled with concern. She had always been able to read Simone like a book. "Oh, baby girl," Ruby whispered as Simone stepped off the bus. She wrapped her granddaughter in a hug that smelled like lavender soap and fresh-baked cornbread. "What did he do to you?" Simone started crying before she could answer. Ruby held her there on the platform, rocking her gently while other passengers moved around them. "It's okay, child. You're home now. Grandmama's got you." The drive to Ruby's house took 20 minutes through winding mountain roads. Simone had forgotten how beautiful it was here, with the Blue Ridge Mountains rising up around them like protective walls. The leaves were just starting to change colors, painting the hillsides in shades of gold and red. Ruby's house sat on 5 acres of land that had been in their family for 3 generations. It was a simple white farmhouse with a wraparound porch and a garden that Ruby tended with the same care she gave to everything else in her life. As they pulled into the gravel driveway, Simone felt some of the tension leave her shoulders for the first time in months. "I made up your old room," Ruby said as they walked up the front steps. "And I cooked your favorite fried chicken, mac and cheese, and green beans. Grandmama, you didn't have to." "Hush. When my baby comes home hurting, I'm going to feed her. That's what we do." Inside, the house looked exactly the same as it had when Simone was a teenager. The same family photos lined the mantelpiece. The same quilts Ruby had made covered the furniture. The same smell of vanilla candles and home-cooked meals filled the air. Simone's bedroom was at the top of the stairs, overlooking the back garden. Ruby had put fresh flowers on the dresser and new sheets on the bed. Everything was perfect and welcoming, which made Simone start crying all over again. "I lost the baby, Grandmama," she said, sinking onto the bed. Ruby sat beside her and pulled her close. "I know, baby. I could see it in your eyes the minute you got off that bus. And David, he chose another woman over me. Over his own child. Tell me what happened." So Simone told her everything. About finding out David was having an affair 6 months ago. About him promising it was over. About the day at the lake when both she and Rebecca fell into the water, and David's choice to save his mistress first. About losing the baby because of the stress and trauma. Ruby listened without interrupting, occasionally stroking Simone's hair or making soft sounds of understanding. When Simone finished, Ruby was quiet for a long moment. "That man made a choice," she finally said. "And now you have to make yours." "I already made it. I left." "No, baby. Leaving was just the first step. Now you have to decide what kind of woman you're going to be moving forward. You going to let this break you? Or are you going to let it make you stronger?" Simone looked up at her grandmother. Even through her grief, she could see the wisdom in Ruby's eyes. "I don't know how to be strong right now. That's okay. You don't have to be strong today. You just have to be here. Tomorrow you can try being a little stronger. And the day after that, a little stronger still." That night, Simone sat on the porch swing where she used to do her homework as a teenager. The mountain air was cool and clean, filled with the sound of crickets and night birds. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. Her phone, which she had finally turned back on, showed 63 missed calls from David. She deleted them all without listening to any of the voicemails. Instead, she called her job in Atlanta to request extended leave. She was a 3rd-grade teacher at an elementary school and she loved her work. But she couldn't go back there right now. Too many memories of planning for maternity leave, of her students asking about the baby, of the life she was supposed to have. Her principal, Mrs. Johnson, was understanding. "Take all the time you need, Simone. Your position will be here when you're ready." Over the next few days, Simone fell into a routine that reminded her of summer visits when she was younger. She would wake up to the smell of Ruby's biscuits baking. They would eat breakfast together on the porch, watching the sun rise over the mountains. Then Ruby would tend to her garden while Simone read or took long walks through the woods behind the house. In the afternoons, they would sit on the porch and talk. Ruby told stories about Simone's mother, about the strong women in their family, about surviving hard times with dignity and grace. Simone slowly began to feel like herself again, or at least like someone she could learn to be. On her 5th day there, Ruby suggested they visit the church where Simone had been baptized as a child. Mount Olive Baptist Church was a small white building with a tall steeple and stained glass windows that cast colorful light across the wooden pews. Reverend Thompson, the same man who had pulled Simone from the lake, was there setting up for Wednesday night service. When he saw Simone, his face lit up with recognition. "Sister Simone, how are you feeling?" "Better," she said and realized it was true. "Thank you for saving my life. The Lord put me in the right place at the right time. How's that baby of yours?" Simone's smile faded. "We lost her." Reverend Thompson's expression became serious and compassionate. I'm so sorry, child. I'll be praying for you and your family. Actually, Simone said quietly, I could use some guidance about what to do next. Come see me tomorrow morning. We'll talk. That evening, as Simone helped Ruby prepare dinner, her grandmother asked a question that had been on both of their minds. Have you thought about what you want to do with the rest of your life, baby girl? Simone paused in the middle of chopping onions. I don't know. I thought I had it all figured out. Husband, baby, career, house with a white picket fence. Now I don't know what I want anymore. Maybe that's a blessing. How is that a blessing? Ruby smiled. Now you get to figure out who Simone really is, not who she thought she was supposed to be. That night, Simone lay in her childhood bed and thought about her grandmother's words. Outside her window, she could hear the wind moving through the trees and the distant sound of a train whistle. For the first time since the accident, she didn't cry herself to sleep. Instead, she found herself thinking about possibilities, about starting over, about becoming someone new, someone stronger. 3 weeks had passed since Simone arrived at her grandmother's house, and she was starting to feel more like herself again. The sharp edge of grief had softened into something more manageable, and she found herself actually looking forward to each new day instead of just surviving them. This morning, she was helping Ruby in the garden when a car pulled up the driveway. An older black woman got out, moving slowly with the help of a walker. She was well dressed in a navy blue dress and matching hat, but her movements were careful and deliberate. Ruby Carter, you come help me with these groceries, the woman called out. That's Mrs. Grace Wilson, Ruby explained to Simone as they walked toward the car. Her granddaughter usually helps her, but she's been sick this week. Mrs. Wilson was 78 years old with silver hair and eyes that sparkled with intelligence despite her physical limitations. She looked Simone up and down with the frank assessment that seemed to come naturally to women of her generation. So you're the granddaughter Ruby's been telling everyone about. The one who came home to heal. Simone felt her cheeks warm. Yes, ma'am. I'm Simone. I'm Grace Wilson. Been living in this community for 56 years. I know everybody and everybody's business. She paused and studied Simone's face. But I also know when to keep my mouth shut and when to offer help. As they carried groceries into Mrs. Wilson's house, which was just down the road from Ruby's, Simone learned more about her new neighbor. Mrs. Wilson had been a nurse for 40 years before retiring. Her husband had passed away 5 years ago, and she lived alone except for frequent visits from her granddaughter Destiny. That girl is 8 years old and smarter than most adults I know, Mrs. Wilson said with obvious pride. But she's been struggling in school lately, having trouble reading. The house was beautiful but clearly too much for one elderly woman to maintain. The garden was overgrown, the gutters needed cleaning, and several light bulbs were burned out in places Mrs. Wilson couldn't reach. Mrs. Wilson, Simone said carefully, would you like some help around here? I have time on my hands and I'd be happy to lend a hand. Mrs. Wilson stopped unpacking groceries and looked at her. You don't have to do that, child. I want to. I'm a teacher, so I could even help Destiny with her reading if you'd like. Mrs. Wilson's eyes filled with tears. That would be a blessing. I've been worried sick about that girl. From that day forward, Simone had a purpose again. Every morning after breakfast with Ruby, she would walk down the road to Mrs. Wilson's house. She spent her days helping with household tasks, grocery shopping, and light maintenance work. In the afternoons, when Destiny got home from school, Simone would help her with homework. Destiny was a beautiful little girl with braided hair and curious brown eyes. She was shy at first, but once she warmed up to Simone, she chattered constantly about everything from her favorite TV shows to her dreams of becoming a doctor like the one who had helped her grandmother after her hip surgery. Miss Simone, Destiny said one afternoon as they worked on a reading worksheet, why are some words so hard? Reading can be tricky, Simone explained patiently, but the more you practice, the easier it gets. Just like riding a bike or learning to swim. I can't swim either, Destiny admitted. Well, maybe we can work on that too when it gets warmer. Destiny beamed. Really? You teach me? Of course. Working with Destiny reminded Simone why she had become a teacher in the first place. It wasn't just about the lessons in books, it was about helping children discover their potential, building their confidence, and watching them grow. Meanwhile, David continued to call and text. His messages had evolved from anger to pleading to frustration and back to pleading again. Ruby always answered the phone when he called the house. She's not ready to talk to you yet, Ruby would say firmly. And pushing her isn't going to help your case. When will she be ready? David had asked during his most recent call. When she's ready. Not a minute before. Simone appreciated her grandmother's protection, but she knew eventually she would have to deal with David. She just wasn't sure what she wanted to say to him yet. One evening, as she was walking home from Mrs. Wilson's house, Simone ran into Reverend Thompson near the church. He was carrying a box of food donations and looked tired but happy. "Sister Simone, how are you settling in?" "Much better, thank you. I've been helping Mrs. Wilson and tutoring her granddaughter." "I heard about that. The whole community is talking about what a blessing you've been to that family." He paused and studied her face. "You look different. Stronger." Simone considered this. "I feel different. Like I'm discovering parts of myself I didn't know existed. That's what healing looks like. God sometimes has to strip away what we thought we wanted to show us what we really need." "Reverend Thompson, can I ask you something?" "Of course. How do you forgive someone who hurt you deeply? Who made choices that cost you everything?" Reverend Thompson set down his box and gave her his full attention. "Forgiveness isn't about them, Sister Simone. It's about you. It's about refusing to let their actions poison your future." "But what if they don't deserve forgiveness?" "None of us deserve forgiveness. But we give it anyway because carrying that anger and hurt only damages us. It doesn't hurt the person who wronged us, it hurts us." Simone thought about this as she continued her walk home. She wasn't ready to forgive David yet, but she was beginning to understand that eventually she would need to, not for his sake, but for her own. That weekend, Ruby suggested they visit the farmer's market in town. Simone had been hesitant to go anywhere public, afraid of running into people who might ask difficult questions. But Ruby insisted it would be good for her. The market was bustling with activity. Local farmers sold fresh produce, crafters displayed handmade goods, and families strolled between the booths enjoying the beautiful fall weather. Simone found herself relaxing as she helped Ruby pick out vegetables and homemade jam. At one booth, they met a woman named Sarah who sold organic honey from her own beehives. She was about Simone's age with natural hair and a warm smile. "I haven't seen you around before," Sarah said as she packaged up a jar of honey for Ruby. "I'm visiting my grandmother," Simone explained. "Well, I hope you'll come back next week. We're having a special event, local women sharing their stories of starting over. It's pretty inspiring." Ruby gave Simone a meaningful look, but didn't say anything until they were back in the car. "Might be good for you to hear some other women's stories," Ruby suggested gently. "Maybe," Simone said, but she was already thinking about it. That evening, she called her principal back in Atlanta to check on her classroom. "We miss you here," Mrs. Johnson said, "but I have to tell you, taking this time was the right choice. You needed to heal." "I'm starting to think you're right. Mrs. Johnson, what would you think if I didn't come back this year?" There was a pause. "I'd think you were following your heart, and I'd support whatever decision you make." After she hung up, Simone sat on the porch swing and watched the sun set behind the mountains. For the first time in years, she felt truly at peace. Not because her problems were solved, but because she was finally becoming comfortable with uncertainty. Her phone buzzed with another text from David. "I drove by your grandmother's house yesterday. I know you're there. We need to talk." Instead of deleting it immediately, Simone read it twice. Then she typed back, "I'm not ready yet, but when I am, I'll call you." It was the first time she had responded to any of his messages in over a month. 5 minutes later, her phone rang. It was David. Simone stared at the screen for a long moment, then silenced the call and went inside to help Ruby with dinner. She wasn't ready yet, but she was getting closer. 2 months had passed since Simone left Atlanta, and life in the mountains had taken on a peaceful rhythm. She woke up each morning in her childhood bedroom, helped Ruby with breakfast, spent her days with Mrs. Wilson and Destiny, and ended each evening on the porch swing, watching the stars come out over the Blue Ridge Mountains. Destiny had made remarkable progress with her reading. What started as painful, halting attempts to sound out simple words had blossomed into confident reading of chapter books. The little girl's confidence had grown along with her skills, and she now chattered excitedly about the stories she read. "Miss Simone, I finished the whole book," Destiny announced one afternoon, holding up a copy of Charlotte's Web with obvious pride. "The whole book? That's amazing, sweetheart. It made me cry at the end, though, when Charlotte died." Simone sat down beside her on Mrs. Wilson's couch. "It's okay to cry when we read sad parts. It means you really cared about the characters." "Have you ever read something that made you cry?" "Many times. Books help us understand feelings, both happy and sad." Destiny nodded seriously, then brightened. "Grandmama Grace says you might stay here forever. Is that true?" Simone paused. She had been thinking about that possibility more and more lately. "I don't know yet, honey. but I know I'm very happy here with you and your grandmother." The truth was, Simone had been avoiding thinking too seriously about the future. She was healing, growing stronger, finding purpose in her new life. But she knew eventually she would have to make real decisions about what came next. That decision was forced on her on a Tuesday afternoon in November. Simone was helping Mrs. Wilson organize her medication when she heard a car door slam outside. Through the window, she saw a familiar figure walking up the driveway. David looked thinner than she remembered, and his usually confident posture seemed uncertain, almost defeated. Her heart started racing. She wasn't ready for this. She had told him she would call when she was ready to talk, and she hadn't called. "Mrs. Wilson, I need to go," Simone said quickly. But it was too late. David was already knocking on the door. "Simone? I know you're in there. I saw you through the window." Mrs. Wilson looked between Simone and the door with understanding in her eyes. "You want me to tell him to go away?" "No," Simone said after a moment. "I need to face this." She opened the door with her chin raised and her shoulders straight. David looked older than his 30 years. His eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion, and he needed a haircut. "Hello, David." "Simone, you look good. Healthy. What are you doing here?" "We need to talk. I've been trying to reach you for months." "I told you I wasn't ready." "It's been 2 months, Simone. How much longer are you going to punish me?" The word punish hit her like a slap. "Punish you? Is that what you think this is about?" Mrs. Wilson cleared her throat from her chair. "Perhaps you two should take this conversation outside." David and Simone walked to the front porch in tense silence. When they were alone, David immediately started talking. "I made a mistake, Simone. A huge mistake. But I can't undo it, and I can't live without you. I love you. You loved me when you were sleeping with Rebecca too. Your love doesn't mean much to me anymore." David flinched. "That's over." "It's been over." "Is it?" "Because the receipt I found in my purse suggests otherwise. The necklace with her initials that you bought 3 days before our baby died." David's face went white. "You saw that?" "I saw it." "So don't stand here and tell me it was over." "Okay, you're right. It wasn't completely over. But it is now. I ended things with Rebecca the day after the accident. I realized what was really important." "It took losing your child for you to figure out what was important?" "Simone, please. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you in the worst possible way. But we can fix this. We can try again." Simone stared at him, feeling a mixture of anger and sadness and something else she couldn't quite identify. Pity, maybe. "David, when we both fell in that water, you didn't even hesitate. You saved her first. Your pregnant wife was drowning, and you saved your mistress first." "I didn't think." "Exactly. You didn't think. In the most crucial moment, when everything was on the line, your instincts told you to save her. That tells me everything I need to know about where your heart really was." David was crying now, and Simone felt nothing. No urge to comfort him, no desire to take back her words, no softening around the edges. Just a strange, peaceful certainty. "I lost our baby because of the stress and trauma of what you did," she continued. "And you want to know the worst part? I don't think you really understand what that means. I don't think you've grieved for her at all. You're too busy trying to get your life back to normal." "That's not true." "What was her name?" David looked confused. "What?" "Our daughter. What was her name?" We had talked about names. "What was I going to call her?" David opened and closed his mouth several times, but no sound came out. "Isabella," Simone said quietly. "Her name was going to be Isabella Rose Carter. We were going to call her Izzy. She was going to have your eyes and my stubborn streak. We were going to teach her to swim in that same lake where she died." David sobbed harder, and Simone realized he truly hadn't let himself think about the baby as a real person. To him, she had just been a pregnancy, a future event, not a daughter with a name and a personality and dreams. "I can't do this with you anymore, David. I can't be married to someone who doesn't understand what we lost. Please don't say that. Please give me another chance." "I gave you chances. I gave you months of chances after I found out about Rebecca the first time. You promised it was over then too. It will be different this time." "You're right. We'll be different. Because I won't be there." David grabbed her hands, and for the first time in months, Simone didn't pull away. Instead, she looked directly into his eyes. "David, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I forgive you." Hope flickered in his expression. "But I'm not coming back to you. Forgiving you doesn't mean I have to stay married to you. It just means I'm not going to let your choices poison the rest of my life." "Simone, I filed for divorce. The papers should be delivered to you by the end of the week." David stepped back as if she had hit him. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. I found a lawyer here in North Carolina. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, but it's happening. What about our marriage vows? For better or worse? Simone almost laughed. You broke those vows when you chose another woman over your wife and child. Don't lecture me about commitment now. They stood in silence for several minutes. Finally, David wiped his eyes and looked at her with something that might have been acceptance. Is there anything I can say that would change your mind? No. Do you hate me? Simone considered the question honestly. No. I don't hate you. I don't really feel anything for you at all anymore. And that's how I know I'm making the right decision. David nodded slowly. What will you do? Will you come back to Atlanta? I don't know yet. But whatever I do, it won't be because of you or in spite of you. It will be because it's what I want for my life. As David walked back to his car, Simone felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she was carrying. She had been dreading this conversation for months, afraid it would hurt or confuse her. Instead, it had clarified everything. She was ready to start over completely. Mrs. Wilson appeared in the doorway with a cup of sweet tea. How do you feel? Free, Simone said, accepting the tea gratefully. I feel free. Now, I have something to ask you. What's that? Destiny's teacher is retiring at the end of the school year. The principal asked if I knew anyone who might be interested in the position. Mrs. Wilson smiled. I told her I might know just the person. Simone looked out at the mountains, painted gold and orange by the setting sun. Somewhere down the road, Ruby was probably starting dinner. Tomorrow, Destiny would bound through the door with her backpack full of homework and stories about her day. The week after next, the church was having their annual harvest festival, and Reverend Thompson had asked if she would help organize activities for the children. This wasn't the life she had planned, but it was a good life. A life full of purpose and peace and genuine love from people who valued her for who she was, not who they wanted her to be. Tell the principal I'm very interested, Simone said. Mrs. Wilson beamed. I was hoping you'd say that. 6 months later, spring had arrived in the Blue Ridge Mountains with an explosion of wildflowers and warm sunshine. Simone stood in front of her new classroom, watching 22 third graders work on their reading assignments with quiet concentration. She had officially started teaching at Mountain View Elementary in January, and it had been the best professional decision she'd ever made. The divorce from David had been finalized in February. He hadn't fought it, and had even agreed to let her keep the house in Atlanta, which she planned to sell. He had sent a letter with the final papers, an apology that seemed more genuine than anything he'd said when he visited. In it, he admitted that he hadn't truly understood what they'd lost until it was too late, and that he hoped someday she could find the happiness she deserved. Simone had read the letter once, then put it away. She harbored no ill will toward David, but she also felt no need to maintain any connection to him. That chapter of her life was closed. Miss Simone? Destiny raised her hand from her seat in the front row. I finished the story. Can I start on the questions? Of course, sweetheart. And remember what we talked about. Really think about your answers before you write them down. Destiny had blossomed since Simone had been working with her. Not only had her reading improved dramatically, but her confidence had soared. She was now one of the strongest students in the class, and often helped other children who were struggling with the same challenges she had faced. After school, Simone walked with Destiny to Mrs. Wilson's house, just as she had been doing for months. But now, instead of going home to Ruby's afterward, she had her own place, a small cottage that she rented from a local family. It had 2 bedrooms, a cozy kitchen, and a front porch with a view of the mountains that took her breath away every morning. Grandmama Grace, guess what? Destiny called out as they entered the house. What's that, baby girl? Miss Simone says I can help teach the summer reading program at the library. Mrs. Wilson, who was now moving much better after physical therapy, smiled broadly. Is that so? My granddaughter, the teacher's assistant. She's going to be a wonderful teacher someday, Simone said. She has a gift for explaining things in a way other kids can understand. As they sat down for their afternoon snack of cookies and milk, Mrs. Wilson brought up a subject she'd been hinting at for weeks. Simone, honey, you know that young man who teaches 4th grade, Mr. Peterson? He's been asking about you. Simone rolled her eyes. Mrs. Wilson, we've talked about this. I'm just saying he's a nice young man. Good with children. Goes to church every Sunday. And he's handsome too. I'm sure he's lovely, but I'm not looking for anyone right now. You can't stay single forever. I'm not staying single forever. I'm just focusing on building the life I want first. If the right person comes along someday, that would be nice. But I'm perfectly happy on my own. It was true. For the first time in her adult life, Simone was genuinely content being alone. She had discovered that she actually enjoyed her own company, that she could make decisions based purely on what she wanted without considering anyone else's needs or preferences. She had started taking pottery classes at the community center. She had joined the church choir. She volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends. She was reading books she'd never had time for, trying recipes she'd always wanted to attempt, and taking long hikes through the mountain trails. Most importantly, she had found a sense of purpose that went beyond any romantic relationship. Teaching these children, many of whom came from difficult backgrounds, felt like the work she was meant to be doing. That evening, Simone sat on her porch with a cup of tea and her laptop, working on lesson plans for the following week. The spring air was perfect, warm enough to be comfortable, cool enough to be refreshing. She could hear birds singing in the trees and the distant sound of children playing in their yards. Her phone buzzed with a text from her friend Sarah, the beekeeper from the farmer's market. Of starting over after difficult relationships. Movie night tomorrow? The new romantic comedy just came to the drive-in theater. Simone typed back, "Sounds perfect. I'll bring popcorn." As she was putting her phone away, it buzzed again. This time it was a number she didn't recognize with an Atlanta area code. Her first instinct was to ignore it. David sometimes tried to contact her from different numbers, but something made her answer. "Hello? Simone Carter?" The voice was female, professional, unfamiliar. "Yes. This is Jennifer Martinez from Henderson Elementary School in Atlanta. I'm the new principal there. I've heard wonderful things about your teaching, and I was wondering if you might be interested in discussing a position here for next fall. We're specifically looking for someone with your experience working with struggling readers." Simone was quiet for a moment. 6 months ago, a call like this would have sent her into a panic, forcing her to choose between her old life and her new one. Now she felt only a mild curiosity. "That's very flattering, Ms. Martinez, but I'm very happy where I am." "I understand. But if you ever change your mind, please don't hesitate to call. We could really use someone with your skills and passion." After she hung up, Simone realized she hadn't felt even a flicker of temptation. The mountains, the school, the community, this was home now. The next Saturday, Ruby came over for their weekly breakfast together. At 72, she was still sharp as a tack and full of opinions about everything. "You look happy, baby girl," Ruby said as she watched Simone flip pancakes at the stove. "I am happy. I can see it in your eyes. There's a light there that wasn't there when you first came home." Simone plated the pancakes and sat down across from her grandmother. "I keep thinking about what you told me that first week. About how pain strips us down so we can build ourselves back up stronger. You remember that?" "I remember everything you told me, but especially that, because you were right. Losing the baby, losing David, losing the life I thought I wanted, it was horrible. But it also freed me to discover who I really am." Ruby reached across the table and patted her hand. "And who are you, Simone Carter?" Simone thought about it. "I'm a teacher who makes a difference in children's lives. I'm a woman who can take care of herself. I'm someone who chooses kindness over bitterness, growth over stagnation, hope over fear. And you're my granddaughter, who has always been stronger than she knew." After Ruby left, Simone walked to the cemetery behind the church. She had started coming here occasionally, not to mourn, but to reflect. Today she stopped at a small gravestone she had placed there months ago. It simply read, "Isabella Rose Carter. Forever in our hearts." She placed fresh wildflowers on the grave and sat down in the grass beside it. "Hi, baby girl," she said quietly. "I wanted to tell you about my week." She told Isabella about her students, about Destiny's progress, about the mountain wildflowers that were blooming everywhere. She talked about the pottery class where she'd finally succeeded in making a bowl that didn't collapse. She mentioned the hiking trail she'd discovered that led to a waterfall hidden deep in the woods. "I think you would have loved it here," she said. "The mountains, the fresh air, the way everyone looks out for each other. Maybe you picked this place for me somehow." As she walked home, Simone felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not for the pain she had endured, she would never be grateful for that, but for the strength she had discovered within herself. For the community that had embraced her. For the chance to start over and create a life that was authentically hers. That evening, she sat on her porch as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Tomorrow was Sunday and she would sing in the church choir. Monday she would return to her classroom full of eager young faces. Next weekend she and Sarah were planning to hike to the waterfall. Her phone sat silent on the table beside her. No desperate calls from David, no urgent crises to solve, no one else's needs taking priority over her own peace. For the first time in her adult life, Simone Carter was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was supposed to be doing, with exactly the right people around her. She was home. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Simone made a silent promise to herself and to Isabella. She would never again settle for a life that didn't honor the strength she had fought so hard to find. She would never again let anyone else's choices define her worth. She had learned that sometimes the most beautiful gardens grow from the ground that has been burned the worst. Sometimes the strongest trees are the ones that have weathered the fiercest storms. And sometimes, losing everything you thought you wanted is the only way to discover everything you actually need. Simone Carter had found her roots at last, and they ran deep.